A huge signing is imminent as a brand new report has just dropped revealing that a Brandon Saad decision is going to come extremely soon. And the Leafs are at the forefront for his services. We're going to break all that down in this episode and discuss what this means going forward as the Leafs prepare for a very interesting move. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, folks. But before we get into it, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, about 71% of you who are watching aren't subscribed. This is the place to be for daily Leafs content. And also, a quick reminder, we'll be live following tomorrow night's game against the Edmonton Oilers. But Darius, we made a video on it last night, and we kind of spoke it into fruition, spoke it into reality here, as a new report just dropped from Nick Kypreos, from a bunch of different guys as well, Darren Dreger, a bunch of guys, basically saying not only is Brandon Saad going to sign soon, he's going to sign as early as today, and the Leafs and the Oilers, which is also funny because the Oilers, they play each other tomorrow, are at the forefront for his services. And this one here is from Nick Kypreos. So you can see this here. Veteran winger and UFA Brandon Saad could sign with an NHL club as early as today. Multiple teams are pushing hard, including the Oilers and the Leafs. Of course, Real Kuiper and Byrne on Sportsnet 590. So Darius, this is interesting. You also coincide this with the Frank Saravalli tweet. As mentioned tonight, 4 teams to keep an eye on are the Leafs, Vegas, the Devils, and the Bolts. He doesn't include the Oilers. They obviously signed John Klingberg, the Oilers, that is a couple weeks ago here. But Darius, it seems like all signs are kind of pointing to the Leafs making a very strong push and most likely acquiring Brandon Saad, which I don't hate, to be honest. It's going to be interesting, and obviously if they make the signing, we'll continue to talk about it, but a decision is imminent here.
I don't hate it, but I don't know if it's the right move for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And not only is tomorrow night the John Klingberg Bowl, it's now looking like it could be the Brandon Saad Bowl, where he's going to sign with one of these two teams over the next 24 hours, maybe. But I thought it was interesting that Saravalli didn't mention the Oilers because there is so much out there right now about the Oilers signing Brandon Saad and that it's actually likely that he's going to go to the Oilers. And the other thing that's come out this morning, too, is it's likely that he will sign with another team because other teams are willing to get this done in short order, whereas the Leafs are kind of, kicking tires on it. They're looking at it. They would like to get it done, but they're not in, a major rush to get it done. So it looks like another team could beat them to the punch there. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch over the next. I think he's going to sign today at some point. At the time we're recording this, again, it's Friday. I think he's going to sign at some point today. I just don't know if it's going to be with the Leafs, but I think it's an interesting option for the Leafs. Like, again, I don't hate it. I just don't know if it's right for this team. There's a bit of a logjam. You'd have to make a subsequent move like pretty soon. And obviously heading into the trade deadline, you'd have to move some pieces out. And I don't know if that's, necessarily great for them because you would like some more depth, right? You don't want to move off of a bunch of pieces to make salary cap space for Brandon Saad and then maybe he gets hurt. He is older, he is a little bit slower, but he can add some depth scoring, right? So I think it's a good option. And in that way, I should say. And he's won Stanley Cups. I've been, talking about it for a long time. The Leafs need to add more guys, and they did it this offseason. So credit to Brad Treliving and company. Guys who've been there, done that, won the Stanley Cup, and they did that last offseason. So I think they need to do more of that. Brandon Saad would be that. So it's an interesting option for the bottom 6. I just don't know because there is a bit of a logjam.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and obviously I'm a sucker for transactions, so I wouldn't hate a Brandon Saad to the Toronto Maple Leafs move. And when you think about it, you see here, Darren Dreger on First Up this morning said the Leafs' interest in Saad is real, and it all depends on what the player wants. He said he doubts Saad will sign for a lot given the limited cap space for the teams interested in him. Also expects the process to not take long. I mean, that's 3 different reporters now saying that a move is imminent here, and I agree with you. I think it's going to happen today. We had similar reports with John Klingberg, and then ultimately he signed, a couple days later, maybe even like 2 or 3 days later, even maybe in the same day. And again, this is from Chris Johnson, so let's add him to so he's the 4th reporter now. The Maple Leafs are expected to be the one team that makes a strong push for Brandon Saad. While they're focused on adding a center, they could still explore him as a wing option. Saad is expected to draw interest from several contending teams as he can be signed without giving up assets, just the cap space. However, his price will be a key factor, especially since he already walked away from a previous offer. He won't come cheap. So, there's some different reports here. One person, Chris Johnson, saying he won't come cheap. So you have Chris Johnson saying he won't come cheap. You have Darren Dreger saying it's going to be pretty cheap. And then, of course, you have Nick Kypreos today saying that multiple teams are pushing hard and that a decision could be made soon here. And as it pertains to the Leafs, I don't think this would really affect what their trade deadline plan is because all this does is obviously change the cap situation around a little bit. But, they still need a third-line center and probably some sort of, it depends. Maybe they're going to go for a depth defenseman. Maybe they go for another winger here. But this would be I think it would be a pretty good fit. He still has some upside, at least for me. I know you're not as high on him. I can't imagine he's worse than a Pontus Holmberg or Nick Robertson, and they desperately need a change in that bottom 6. It's been really bad, especially as of late, and I think Brandon Saad could at least give some sort of change of scenery for the Leafs.
Well, that's just the thing, though, that you brought up there. Like, he would be an upgrade over Pontus Holmberg, or in the playoffs, I think Nick Robertson, because like we saw last year, he got a couple chances, but he was very quiet, right? And not very physical. So I think that he would be an upgrade in that way. You just have to make the salary work. And then, what's going out? Again, they would have to make a move right after to make this work and heading into the trade deadline if they want to acquire a center, in that way. But I think it's very interesting that they wanted to. There's been rumblings where, yes, they want a center, but maybe also a left wing. And now they don't need to get one via trade. They can just sign this guy. And there's a lot of conflicting reports, like you just brought up too, where it's going to come cheap, or no, actually, you're going to pay a significant price because of the money you just left on the table. By all accounts, over the last day, what we've heard is he's going to sign for cheap. He's going to sign for league minimum because a lot of these contending teams are up against the cap. He knows that. He wants to play in the NHL. He didn't want to be sent down. They were trying to trade him. Nobody could take on that salary. So he knows that. It's not like he's going to sign again for $3 million or something. He's going to sign for league minimum or $1 million. So I think it is going to come pretty cheap in that way. And a lot of teams can fit that, especially for his services. And he's a decent player still. And I think on a contending team, he could be a really good depth piece. And he seems hungry. Like, the one thing that I admire most about this entire situation is he left almost $5 million on the table this year and next to play for a contending team and try and win a Stanley Cup this year. I think that speaks volumes to what he wants to accomplish. And the Leafs are trying to accomplish that. So he left a lot of money on the table to just go and win a Stanley Cup, right? So I think that's really cool of him, and I think it's going to come cheap.
Yeah, you also have this from Jordan Schmaltz, Nugget of the Week, Brennan Saad, who said to take the $5 million left in the deal that is worth equally as much. He basically said a bunch of different things. Imagine that's how bad you didn't want to play in the jungle. You're willing to part ways with 5 sticks. Somebody give this guy a prorated 775. So, I mean, it's a little bit interesting. You have a bunch of different people here coming out and saying, one side saying that he might be worth money, people calling him crazy for turning down $5 million. At the end of the day, if you're the Devils, if you're the Leafs, if you're any of these teams, you have Devils fans coming out and saying, I'm absolutely taking a flyer on Brandon Saad. His 13-goal pace in a very down year is better than most of the bottom 6 to begin with. Scored a 23-goal pace his entire 14-year career. So he's also a solid playoff performer, averaging half a point a game. He's won the Cup twice. I mean, it screams Craig Berube to me. And you see here, the Blues have been trying to deal Saad for a while now, but there were no serious takers. He was dispirited, wasn't the same guy. Now he has a chance to pitch his destination. So he obviously gets the pick, and whether he picks the Leafs, the Oilers, Vegas, the Devils, the Bolts, I mean, they're all in pretty similar situations. It's really just a matter of either A, who he prefers, or B, what team gives him the most amount of money. But I like it, and I think it would make a lot of sense. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's some teams out there that can offer him a little bit more, so maybe that could play a factor in it. He's going to go where he thinks he has the best shot to win a Stanley Cup. And whether you roll your eyes or not, the Leafs are one of those teams. The Oilers are one of those teams, right? Like, Vegas is definitely in the mix. The Devils are a very good team this year. So makes sense on that front. And I think for the Leafs, it could make sense because when you look at the playoff picture, this is an upgrade over a couple guys that they have in the lineup right now. I am a little bit concerned about getting older in this way, so I would be okay if they didn't sign him. But I think it's an interesting option because it doesn't come with a price tag besides obviously, signing him to a contract. You don't have to trade for a left wing in this way. And there's been rumors about them wanting that center, wanting another left wing possibly via trade at the deadline. So you would get this guy and you wouldn't have to spend assets. It would just be salary. So I think it's a very interesting option, and I wouldn't hate it one way or another, honestly. But I think that, most likely the Leafs probably won't sign him, and I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, let us know down below what your thoughts are. A lot of moves are on the horizon. A lot of rumors and reports are rumbling. So we're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.